Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to A Gringo Sergipano. This is episode 13, where we're building the city of Kier. And today we're going to focus on kind of filling in some of the areas in this main peninsula that has downtown. And I'm going to focus on this area in kind of the center left of the screen here. And add a new community that I'm going to call Bellingham. So I'm pretty excited about getting started on this. So let's get going. Okay, so I've gone ahead and continued the avenue grid that we kind of already have pre-existing here that kind of comes from the downtown or comes from the other cities in Gans or Gerhardt. So we have our main roads laid out now, so we have a lot to work with going forward, and over future episodes we're going to start to fill in these gaps and make communities within them. So as I was building these roads, I was looking at something that I want to do in the future. So I have moved the train track closer to the edge of the river in between the industrial neighborhood and Gans, because it's going to help later on. Okay, so I had previously laid out a little bit of an expansion of this industrial area, but I had not zoned it. So I'm going to expand that expansion to the next little section here, and we'll fill that in a minute. I've also created this roundabout because the way the roads are, I kind of have this awkward situation where I have three roads converging at a 90 degree, like within the 90-degree angle. So I have one coming in at a 45 and another coming in. I had to kind of curve it a little bit to make it work, but that's what we got. Alright, so the zoning's going to fill in these sections here. I also want to point out that I have moved the geothermal heating plants, which were kind of stored away in a section beyond Baird, but now this is kind of a better permanent home for them. Alright, enough with that extracurricular industrial stuff. And as you can see here, we have moved the geothermal heating plants that were here, but this is the main area where we're going to build Bellingham, so I want to kind of get started on that. Okay, so I have raised the rail. It is raised over a section over in Gerhardt, but I've continued to raise the rail over this avenue in what will be Bellingham, and I have created an initial grid. This is not going to be the center of the city, but it's just to kind of understand how the grid is going to lay out so that it corresponds with the rest of the grids in the area. And I had to lay that out because the kind of center section of Bellingham, the main high-density section, is going to be kind of positioned towards the river rather than the normal grid system. So it is a little bit off-kilter. But it's going to create some unique character for this community, and I'm really excited about the way this design is going to work out. Alright, so we got some of the high-density buildings filling in this section now. I have some other things, some city services that I've plopped in, education and death care and things of that nature. So we're going to let this kind of do its magic and see what we can come up with and see how this is going to evolve. Alright, so I hope you can see what I was going for here. This is the first half of Bellingham. Like I said, the population center is kind of concentrated closer to the river. We have a lot of low density beyond that. I think most of the rest of the city will end up being low density, except for right along the river has been the case through this entire city, where we have high density along the river. Okay. Now that I've stopped to admire my work, I've gone ahead and completed the grid for Bellingham and allowed it to extend into Gerhardt so that it's connected. Everything kind of flows together. And yeah, so let's get working on this part. Alright, so I have added 2 infill stations to Metro Line 2 because we've already had a run that goes between downtown and Baird and Gerhardt, so now we have Bellingham in, so we have 2 stations. I'm going to go ahead and delete this old track that kind of ran through the middle, and now we have it running towards, kind of the population base in the center, So I think that this is a very well utilized route, so we're going to have a lot of, it's going to continue to be utilized throughout Bellingham. Alright, so I had previously elevated the rail, but I have kind of gone crazier with this, and I've elevated the rail even towards the other side and the connections of it, coming from across the river, running parallel to the backside of Baird. So I'm going to be able to utilize the land underneath a little bit better and have some connectivity. Alright, so tramline 4 had previously ended at the edge of Gerhardt, but now it goes through Bellingham, underneath the highway, and kind of ends in a circle around the tram depot in Baird, which also provides some connectivity to the tram line that runs through the center of downtown in Baird. I want them to be two separate things because I think they serve two separate purposes, but I think it's great that those two things are kind of lined up now and we have a way to connect, which wasn't there before. Alright, so bus line 12, which ran along the river in Gerhardt, is now extended through into Bellingham, and we have another line that is similar to the downtown and other areas over on that side, which ends nearby, but we're not going to make that into one big line. It's way too long. For the same reasons that we cut short and kind of divided that line, the tram line into two, we're going to do that with the bus lines here. Alright, and that's it. We do have Bellingham. You noticed I moved some of the sewage treatment plants into this area between the highway and the rail because it fits very well, and I thought it was a much better place to have them than where they were in other industrial areas. So I think this is a much better land use. But anyway, we're going to continue the development of this area. It's kind of just open land right now into the next episode, and we'll catch you in that one. Alright everybody, take care. Have a great day.